Turning over to the livestock markets now, on Monday, President Joe Biden and Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack met virtually with some farmers and ranchers to announce a meat supply chain action plan. This plan includes 4 core strategies for creating a more competitive, fair, resilient meat and poultry sector. To break down some of the specifics of the announcement, we visited with UNL livestock economist Elliott Dennis. Elliott began by detailing this action plan.
Yeah, so the biggest thing that I got out of that was there's a lot of funding, grant opportunities, and innovative funding that's going to be coming down the pipeline. I think they laid out specific dollar amounts that really went through, and really this is to try to address some of the concerns about workforce development, availability of small and very small processing facilities, and just to try to develop or convert existing processing facilities to federally inspected. And so there's lots of different dollars amounts that are specific to different types of those, but most of this stuff is going to come online in spring and summer of 2022. The University of Nebraska has already done a couple webinars on what some of those types of funding are. This spring we're going to do another one, so just if you want to look for those, cap.unl.edu is where that information is already there, and we'll make sure to keep people aware of the types of fundings and those deadlines and how we can do to help.
Something else that came through during that press conference was the fact that they're planning to do a little bit tighter enforcement of the Packers and Stockyards Act. What do you think we could see different here in the new year in 2022? Maybe some changes coming from USDA on that side?
Yeah, so there's really 3 things that the Packers and Stockyards Act is going to be doing. And the first is that they're going to just provide clarity on that rule. And the second is that they're going to get rid of this kind of tournament-style poultry production kind of system. And then third, they're just going to try to remove the claim that you have to show harm in order to bring a claim to the Packers and Stockyards. That last one probably has the biggest implication for the beef processing industry in general, because you used to have to be able to show that there was actual harm, and now you can actually submit a claim. The USDA also came out with this new portal, or will be coming out with the new portal that you can actually go ahead and submit those claims. So I think it just produces a bit more opportunity to bring those claims together.
Obviously, a lot of things that came out during that Monday event. Something that didn't quite get the press attention that surprised me had to do with tightening up the title "Product of the USA" when it comes to marketing. This is separate from COOL, country of origin labeling. But what did you see in terms of "Product of the USA" labeling? What are they going to do on that front?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. This is primarily geared towards people who are marketing products, and it's really trying to reduce the fraudulent labels of what the product of the USA actually is. And I think there's 3 things that they specifically addressed. First was that in order for it to be the product of USA, it had to be final assembly of or processing of the product. All that significant processing has to be done within the U.S., and all virtual ingredients have to be from the U.S. And so I was also a little bit surprised that didn't get as much, because there's been a lot of claims out there saying that there's kind of misrepresentation on what the product actually is, and consumers are potentially paying premiums for products that they think were produced in the U.S. but maybe are imported and processed. And so really all that did was codify a lot of that for the Federal Trade Commission, and also provides a civil penalty for people who actually fraudulently make those claims that they're delivering product to the USA when in fact they're not.
So that was all happening in Washington, D.C. on Monday. Let's go to the other side of the country in terms of California. Prop 12 was passed back in 2018, finally came into effect here as we enter the new year. That has to do with a number of different animals, but it seems like pork has gotten a lot of the attention on that side. Give us the background of what is Prop 12 and how could that impact the industry?
Yeah, so Prop 12 was really passed back in 2018. It's gone, as you mentioned, pork has been kind of the highlighter of it, because they're the ones who have been kind of fighting it in the court, and justifiably so. It has to do with gestation crates of pork production and the number of and the spacing of in certain production facilities. And California is a large consumer of pork. They don't do hardly any pork production, and so they import a lot of that. And so it kind of was getting some of this commerce clause is kind of what was being argumented about whether you can enforce regulations on a certain part of the industry, even though they're shipping to another. That ultimately got struck down. Whether that's going to be heard by the Supreme Court and whether that Commerce Clause is going to be held valid kind of remains to be seen. I think Prop 12 just gives an idea of what's kind of happening within the industry at large and how consumers can really drive the agenda for what we're able to do in commercial agriculture. And in the hog and beef industry, regulation on antibiotic use is one of those classic examples how people are concerned about the use of antibiotics and hormones in food production and how the government potentially responds to some of those concerns.
Well, let's get some of your final thoughts here quick, Elliott. What else in the cattle industry has caught your eye lately?
Yes, there's a lot of been talk about downward pressure on price, and a lot of that had to do, especially in the feedlot, a lot of that had to do with packer leverage and the number of cattle and COVID and lots of issues. And I think one of the bright things that we saw in this last cattle on feed report was that placements were still strong, but also marketings were strong. And really what that's setting us up to in April and May to be pretty strong pricing, particularly here in Nebraska where we place heavy cattle.
UNO livestock economist Elliott Dennis joining us. Elliott, always good to see you. Thanks for your thoughts.
Yeah, thanks for having me.